What you are listening to is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in the squared circle. Both parties have agreed to dismiss their cases and have their disputes settled here in our forum, the Turnbuckle Debate.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Turnbuckle Debate. My name is Sneed.
I'm Chad.
I'm Tom, the OG Fig Kid, the staple of the Turnbuckle Debate.
And our special guest joining us today, one of our favorite people to have on with us. It's a pleasure to have him back, Mr. Mark Bitters. What's going on, man?
Thanks, Sneed. Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good, man.
Happy to have you back, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a while. I don't even know what episode I was on, but I always love coming back. You guys always have a great conversation, and we can get into a couple arguments here and there, and it's a good time for everybody.
It's crazy because we have such good conversation. I feel like you were just on.
Oh, well, it was a lot less in between this time than the first time and the second time.
That is true.
Yeah.
Well, what's been going on, man? What you got going on?
Dude, it's my life's crazy right now. I want to say when I first did your show, I don't even know if I was back reffing by then.
We're just starting to.
I think you were thinking about getting back in.
That might have been, or maybe it was I had agreed with Cardona to do the FWF2, but it hadn't come up yet. So I was doing like my training, shaking some rust off. So that was like middle of 2021, cut to the end of 2022 where we are here, and my life is upside down. I am constantly traveling for wrestling, doing shows all over the place. I'm working for FWF. I'm working for Swaggle's ECW. I'm working for Dave Hero up here. I'm doing ring crew now for Impact. I am all over the place, and that's just my wrestling career. My wife, which I think we've talked about in here at length, so we don't need to do that today, but her career is taking off. We're traveling a ton for that. DDP's Christmas party is coming up. We got to go to Atlanta for that in 2 weeks. We are all over the place.
That's exciting, man.
It absolutely is. It's at 40 to have the life that I have. When I went from the ages of like 28 to 39, I wasn't doing anything but really like working my job. And now I got back into wrestling at 40. My life is upside down, and I am loving every second of it.
That's so exciting.
One of the other exciting things that happened was a couple months ago, I ran into your boy Tom. I saw Tom in person.
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Oh, this was fantastic. I don't even know how this came about. Tom, what's the story here?
Oh, you mean with the extra seats we had? We had Steeda giving us seats for All Out for the Dynamite, and we wound up getting better seats through someone. So I'm like, we have 4 seats. Let me call Mark up and see if he wants to.
Who do I know in Chicago? Dude, we were so grateful that you reached out. You reached out like it was the day of, right? Or the day before?
Yeah, I think it was the afternoon of.
It was like hours before bell time. My kid was still in school. And I'm talking to my wife. I'm like, well, if we're going to make this happen, we got to go to the school now, pull him out of school early, and then get over to the arena. And she said, absolutely. Let's get in the car. Let's get moving. So, yeah, you guys gifted us with amazing tickets to Dynamite on whatever. It was the Wednesday before All Out. Is that what you said?
The go home edition.
The go home.
Okay. Yeah, amazing show. Really, really fun time. This was my son's first wrestling show in like an arena, like a big multi-thousand person arena.
Oh, wow.
And so his mind was blown. Like the only time he had been in an arena like that was to see like monster trucks and like the big events. So to show him wrestling, which is something I've been trying to get into, this really, really helped. He was the entire night, and for the next couple of weeks, he was just talking about his favorite wrestlers and the favorite stuff that happened.
That's
that
awesome,
night.
man.
Yeah, it was really. I'm very, very appreciative for that night, Tom. Thank you very much.
That we contributed to that.
Absolutely, yeah, the whole team here.
That's
Absolutely.
so cool,
and as for wrestling fans sitting here, that's a big moment in a little like your first experience like that as a little kid. That's incredible.
Yep. I seriously, when I say thank you, I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. It meant a lot to me and meant even more to my kid. It was a fantastic time.
Well, anytime we can do something like that, I mean, that's what it's all about, man. Just fostering that with another kid and seeing a kid get into it like that.
Shepherding along the new generation, man.
There you go. Get them into it. Get them as obsessed as we are.
Exactly.
I know Chad and I had gone to an indie event here back in, what was it, June, Chad? And
Yeah.
there was a kid in front of us who was just losing his
It's the best.
mind. And
Totally bought in.
And I had more fun watching that kid lose his mind than the matches that were going on. Like, it was so much fun.
So I do a lot of independent shows. I do small shows, I do big shows, I do all sorts of stuff in between. My favorite shows to do are birthday parties. Where it's kids who aren't even necessarily like wrestling fans. Like the one kid is, the birthday boy is.
Yeah.
But the 15 kids he invited aren't necessarily wrestling fans. And by the end of those very small shows, you have 15 kids going nuts for the good guys, like throwing things at the bad guys. It's the simplest crowd to work in front of, but it's like it boiled down. It's just like the easiest form of entertainment and live performance you can get, and it is such a blast. I love birthday parties.
That's
so
great.
awesome,
And it's all because it's in front of kids. That's my point. It's just seeing
Exactly.
the kids' reactions because of that. It's phenomenal.
And it's great because with kids, the heels get to get booed the way they're supposed to. It is none
That's
of that,
true. There you go.
There's none of that different, like, I like the bad guy, so I'm going to cheer for the bad guy. So
Now, for most kids, a bad guy is a bad guy.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that here in just a little bit. We have 3 new topics to debate, and we'll get into that one, but we have another topic to start off with. Are you guys ready?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
All right. First topic of the evening. With the reported backstage altercation between Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens, is WWE trying to recreate their own brawl out, or is this legit?
Man, I'm calling it a work because I've never heard of either of these guys having issues with anybody backstage. And
you calling it a work, Tom?
I know, right? Can you believe it?
Shocker.
But like I love it if they're trying to tap into that and do something with it, because that helps when you believe that there's real drama to a story. Like, it just adds to a story. So like, I'm 100%. This has got to be a work. KO loves everyone. You've seen him on social media. He praises everyone. You see Roman. He's so like different than he is on TV with everyone backstage. 100% a work, in my opinion.
I think it's an overblown shoot. I think Kevin Owens, because the story, correct me if I'm wrong, the story is that KO laid in some stiff chops, right? A stiff slap.
I heard it was one slap.
One slap that busted his eardrum, apparently.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I heard. So I could see, we know that in wrestling, getting potatoed is a pretty common thing. And to be the man, Roman, and a guy hits you a little harder. And if there was some sort of eardrum situation after that, I could see him coming in the back and being pissed off, like, dude, did you have to hit me that hard? But as far as like there being any lasting effects that's going to affect the company, or is anyone going to get punished for it or fired, that's all. I don't buy into any of that. Now, the rumor is they are going to be facing one another at the Royal Rumble. So it does make you think. Work seems a little likely, but I think something probably did happen, but they're just stoking fires a little bit in the media.
I don't think them working the Rumble is a signal one way or another if this is a work. And they were in a match in November. The Royal Rumble is around the corner. Shocking that 2 guys from a match in November could also be working each other in January.
Yeah.
I don't think that plays. I don't think this is one bit a work. I think this is 100%. I think your phrasing of overblown shoot is dead on. I do think that Owens laid in a slap that was, I don't think it was called. I just think that they, out of the feeling, the feeling that he got in the ring, Owens just let himself go and slapped Roman across what he thought was the face. He caught Roman's ear. It pissed Roman off. You could see him selling it throughout the rest of the match a little bit. And that was it. And then in the back, you just do what happens when somebody lays it in when you weren't expecting to. You yell at him, he yells back, blah, 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 and it's done. Every report now isn't that it's blown over, that it's done, that there isn't any more heat.
What I've heard is that it's kind of settled down. Like it's not
But they had a press conference right after the pay-per-view. And I understand if they're trying to, like, if they're going with Tom's conspiracy here, that it was a work and they're just trying to make it their own brawl out, then maybe don't have it bleed over into the press conference to be an exact copy of Brawl Out. But to not have either one of them in that press conference at all, to even like lay some groundwork, versus in the ring, if let's again imagine that this is a work, in the ring, Owen slaps him in the face, and Reigns sells his ear a little bit, but not a ton, and then everything is just backstage reports. Nothing is seen. Right? Nothing. It's all about what's reported. So we're not getting the visuals that we got from Brawl Out. We're not getting the clips from Brawl Out. We're just getting Meltzer's report or whoever pumped these reports out. I don't think WWE is not known for nuance. You know what I mean? The little details aren't WWE's specialties, and they shouldn't be. They appeal themselves to a mass audience. They need to hit you over the head with details, especially if they're doing this to set up a pay-per-view for January. They're not going to. This isn't, Macho Man Hogan build up for a year of little things. This is Reigns Owens for the Rumble. I'm not saying they don't care. I'm just saying they don't care as much as they did for that build up. And I do just think this was a one and done. Just somebody messed up in the ring a little bit. I don't even think you call it a mess up. I just think somebody got hot in the ring, and by the end of it, it was blown over.
Too quick.
Reigns
Go ahead, Tom.
A press conference and had some Dunkin' Donuts and be like, I work with toddlers, and just
right. They would have done something. Have one of them come out and just give have it just be like a regular press conference, but then Owens gives one line about somebody being difficult to work with. Yeah. He doesn't name anybody. Like, just do something to give people a reason to talk about it for the next couple of days. We don't have any other information other than what happened on Saturday in the ring. Everything else has been hearsay from reports.
Yeah. Two quick things before you go, Sneed. I think number one, if it was a work, they would have, like you're saying, Mark, they would have done more.
Breadcrumbs, right?
There would have been more breadcrumbs, more cheese for the rats. Number two, if Roman was slightly selling that ear, he was slightly selling that ear because it was really fucking hurt.
Right. Make it Roman bigger Reigns, if it's going to lead to something. Yes.
Yeah. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, does not sell a slap to the ear in kayfabe. That's not something you sell. A slap to the ear. You sell a slap later. To the ear.
That's a great point. Right. Now, Roman, the person, absolutely does because it fucking hurts. But there's no reason for Roman to do it, the character, because it's just a slap. He just takes the slap. Yeah. He just eats it and moves on.
Joe's going to sell it. Yeah. But Roman's not.
Right.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely a shoot. I mean, and coming into it, I had said shoot is what I was going to say. And then, Chad, you said overblown shoot, which is 100% what it is. Very, very overblown. I don't even think it was as blown up as, or as bad as what they said, him coming back and screaming and getting mad. Like,
probably not. There was probably some words exchanged, and that was it.
I think somebody sitting back there saw them have an exchange. Like, dude, you hit my ear. God dang it! Like, that hurt.
And that happens with every match. Every match, everybody complains about something.
Yeah,
I think this is just a result of a slow news day. Has there been? I haven't been up on it. Tom, maybe you know. Has there been any new news on this in the past 3 days?
I honestly didn't even know about it until Chad sent around the questions for the debate. That's when I started. That's how under the.
I just assumed. So whose question was this, Tom? I just assumed this was your question.
No, it was Chad's question, but I looked into it and I found news stories on it. I'm like,
that's funny. So Chad posed the question. Like, are people suspecting this of being a work? Is that out there, or Chad? Is this your opinion that it could be?
No, it's not. I mean, I think it's a shoot, but I just thought I was more the question. I guess shoot or work is kind of a disingenuous way to phrase it, because mine was more, are they trying to the brawl out? Are they trying to make their own backstage scuffle situation? And that was more of the press, how they were handling it, because Fightful first reported on this. Just the altercation. Roman wasn't happy. There was a bit of a back and forth between the two of them. Meltzer came out, I think, following that, maybe the next day after Fightful's report, and Meltzer kind of like downplayed it in his report. He didn't play it up that this was a real issue. I think it was even quoted. He said there's no suspensions as of right now. It doesn't look like there's going to be any changes in storyline or any punishment or anything like that. But Roman Reigns was upset. That absolutely happened.
No, I wouldn't. Again, I think this is 100% a shoot. I think it was just something that happened in the ring live and they can't do anything about it. That said, maybe they turn it into something because it got a little bit of press. That's to be seen, right? Nothing happened on Raw. Are they still separated on Raw and SmackDown? I feel like I ask this every time I come on here. I don't.
Didn't they come on Raw?
No,
was either one of them on Raw?
Jey Uso for Kevin Owens on Raw this week. So
okay, but did they reference the altercation at all? Did they say anything between the heat between Roman and Owens?
I didn't see Raw this week.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't think they did. I
didn't hear anything about it. Right.
But I mean, but just to push back against that, AEW didn't reference Brawl Out at all either. You know, like
that's funny, that. But they also didn't put the guys in the main event.
Yeah,
the next show.
Yeah, it's true too.
And start using their names.
So if this is something, if you know, I'm sure this is commonplace where people have their words about, you know, spots that they did during the match that, you know, were laid in a little hard or, you know, just didn't go as planned. I'm sure they talk about this. So what made this one make a news story? Why did this one make a news story?
It's the first one after Brawl Out. And
yeah, I think it's just fans wanting it to be a brawler. I think it's just fans making the story up. I think it's just jaded WWE fans, whether they're actual AEW fans or not. I think it's just fans who are jaded on WWE thinking, oh, here's another WWE storyline that's just stolen from AEW or wherever else. I think it was 100% fabricated by the fans.
And it's Roman. Anything with Roman, no matter how minuscule. I mean, think back to when the story came out of Jericho wanting to fight Lesnar because he wanted to know if that hard way he did on Randy Orton was a shoot or a work. He was pissed about that when wasn't it Lesnar that opened up Randy and Jericho wanted to fight him over it, like shit like that. That's a backstage situation that should have never made it public. But again, one of those little moles in the back saw it, probably called up Uncle Dave and said, oh shit, Jericho got in Lesnar's face. And then it became this big news story.
Yeah.
But I think news stories like that almost add to the legend and the allure of wrestlers.
Of course.
Like, I don't think it hurts. To me,
it could obviously it could hurt Owens personally, not personally, but professionally. It could hurt those two guys specifically. And that's where I don't think a lot of fans consider. They just see these guys as TV personalities, as larger than life, and they're not real people. And they absolutely are. If this gets blown out of control and it gets blown out way bigger than it is, and now Owens is known as the guy who takes things into his own hands and he'll just slap you in the face if he feels like it, his whole reputation could be changed because of fans wanting to make up their own story the way that this is kind of blown up.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that'll happen. I'm just saying it could. You know what I mean?
I think it could change with the fans, maybe. But like, as far as the backstage, man, this is shit that's not just par for the course in wrestling. This is par for the course in athletics. You always see NFL teams getting into these huge knockdown, drag out fights during training camp practice where somebody lit up a first stringer too hard in scrimmage and they get into this big fight. And all the veterans and the coaches, they're like, hey, this is just the name of the game. You got testosterone fueled grown ass men wanting to go at each other. It's going to happen. Sometimes people are going to go to blows. Sometimes somebody's going to get hit a little too hard and they ain't going to like it. And there's going to be a fight about it. I think this is like much to do about nothing for me.
It should have been like the Brock and Braun situation when Braun laid into Brock a little too hard and Brock let him know about it right in the ring. There was nothing afterwards because
little receipt
that we know of. Tom. We don't know what happened in the back. That's another thing that the fans don't consider is that we never get the full story on how tight these guys are, whether Roman and Owens hate each other, whether they're best friends. We don't know what they're doing when they go back to the hotel. Maybe they hang out all night and play video games. We don't know, right? It's fans act like they know everything because of what they see on Monday and Friday nights. And it's a very, very, very small portion of these guys' lives. And the portion you are getting is the character. You're not even getting the personal guys.
Right.
But Mark, I just gotta let you know one thing I learned last week: dirt sheets don't lie.
Is that right? Is that right?
Let's not just glide past the fact that we've all said it's a shoot, but Tom says nope, it's a work.
I know he's trying to bury that was his response out of the gate.
It's a shoot, overblown shoot. But listen, they should make it into a work and build it into the story because that's what people want.
Well, I mean, shoots turned into works are what wrestling's built on. You know,
Yeah,
that's
totally.
Some of the best stuff. So
If you can get fans to believe that something's real when really it's a big work. I mean, Kaufman and Lawler did that kind of stuff. Absolutely, 100%. That's where the money is.
Definitely. All right. Anybody have any final thoughts before we move on?
No.
All right. We will move on to the second topic of the evening. Is GCW the new ECW? Now, Mark, this was your question, so I'm going to defer to you. Let you go first.
Yeah, this is something that I won't give you my opinion on it now, but this is something that I see a lot of fans comparing. Right, a lot of the GCW fans, or maybe it's not even the GCW fans, but it's people who are familiar with the GCW product. And when they're trying to compare it and describe it to somebody who maybe isn't familiar with GCW, but is familiar with wrestling, they'll say, well, GCW, you know, it's kind of like ECW was back in the day. It's got a fan following that's rabid. They love blood and hardcore matches. They're tearing each other apart. Is GCW the new ECW? What do you guys think?
I'm going to say at one point I would have said yes, but I think GCW is the new ECW from a 30,000 foot view. If you really get up on it, it's not breaking ground like ECW did. When ECW came along, it was breaking a mold that had not been broken before. I mean, you were getting Southern style wrestling in Atlanta with WCW and, you know, all of that. You had a little bit of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. You had WWE doing what WWE does. And then ECW came along and kind of split everything wide open and showed you something that you'd never seen before. GCW, I do think they're giving a little bit of spotlight to like the true modern day deathmatch scene that hasn't been seen on a stage like this before. But outside of that, I think they're lacking in being what ECW was on a couple fronts. Number one, they don't tell as many long-term compelling stories that ECW. People forget that ECW had great stories, like great feuds. My mind goes to like Tommy Dreamer and Raven. One of the greatest wrestling feuds, not just in ECW, but ever. They were telling very compelling stories. You had Paul Heyman, who, I mean, hindsight's 2020. He's one of the great minds of pro wrestling. I don't know if they have that. I mean, Matt Cardona came in. He's done some cool storylines here and there. Nick Gage is probably the most genuine over babyface in pro wrestling with his fan base. But as far as like monumental shape-shifting, groundswell, just change the game type of stuff, I don't think GCW is doing what ECW did.
Yeah, Chad kind of nailed it. I thought it's on the outside, yes, but I felt like Chad, and he explained it really well. It's really not. It's got its own fan base, but like it's Chad explained it so well. I can't even.
It's got its own fan base. That's all it needs to be compared to ECW.
No, but I mean, it's more hardcore than what we see on TV with WWE and AEW. It does.
It's more hardcore, sure, and that I get real hot about this topic. I think there is a very, very, very fine, thick line between ECW and GCW. I don't think they're comparable at all. How old are you guys?
39.
Okay, I heard late 30s from all you. So you guys grew up. Were you ECW fans?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I think the problem is that this comparison comes from a lot of people who are either too young to have been around for ECW and they're just getting the WWE highlights, or they just weren't fans back then of ECW and they didn't follow it and they just thought it was garbage wrestling. ECW was absolutely not garbage. It had some garbage wrestling, absolutely. I mean, New Jack and Axel Rotten and Balls Mahoney. They had garbage matches, but they had so much more too. The storylines, like you said, I think Chad, you brought up Dreamer and Raven. I think that's the layup storyline, but they had so many other amazing storylines in ECW, stuff that you needed nuance that we talked about earlier, where you need that nuance to be able to tell. Taz Sabu, that's a big one that I was talking about. Yeah. And then so many more beyond that. It's Steve Corino with anybody. The Steve Corino Rhino story with the network. They had legitimate storylines that were okay for television. And on top of that, the hardcore stuff that they did was like 1 in 100 matches. Like, yes, at every house show they had New Jack end the show by coming out with a garbage can full of keyboards. You know what I mean? They had that. But the majority of the show was just wrestling. It was Jerry Lynn versus RVD. You know what I mean? It was right. It wasn't. People forget about that stuff. They think ECW is Terry Funk versus Sabu in a no rope barbed wire match, and they think that's it. They just paint ECW as that entire match, and they don't think another thought about it, and they just compare that to GCW because that's essentially, in my opinion, what GCW is: just deathmatch, deathmatch, deathmatch. Very little story, and it's not ECW. It's not. Not only, I love the point that you brought up, Chad, where they were groundbreaking, right? ECW was doing stuff that had never been done before, and they were making a new genre of wrestling. And then on top of that, they also introduced ladders and chairs and tables. And they ran into the problem of, well, what happens when, the last show we ended it with a big table spot? Okay, right. Well, now this next show, now what do we do? Okay, let's do 2 double chair shot. And you got to keep building. Eventually, we're doing big balcony dives. New Jack would do his balcony. Okay, now where do we go from here? Eventually, you go to fire, right? Every pay-per-view now we get a big fire spot. You have to keep outdoing yourself every show. Keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that eventually, I think, is one of the downfalls of ECW. But I also think that GCW is the result of ECW, right? GCW had to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. 20 years later, after what ECW started, GCW is just the result of where ECW is now.
Yeah. I think GCW has the spirit of ECW.
100%.
I think that's true.
I would say they have the spirit. They're not doing, there's and I think there's always going to be a demand for that outlaw wrestling company. There's always going to be those fans that want that outlaw wrestling company and
that fuck the man mentality.
Yeah. And Chad, what you said, ECW was the groundbreaker on that. ECW, that you didn't have that before. And it was kind of a holy shit. There's a company that's doing this. And I think, with them being the spirit, having the spirit that ECW, being the spirit of ECW, I think nowadays there's so much more, there's a lot more ways to make money in professional wrestling that I think that they can be a different company in that sense. But I think they have the spirit, but I don't think they are the new.
But I also think in the same vein of them grow, of GCW being a result of ECW and them growing off of what ECW started. I don't think ECW could have made the money that GCW is making.
No.
If they're doing the same type, and I'm talking death matches. If we just look at like female matches, females in ECW were a joke. They were like the original like bimbo divas back then, but that's what introduced girls into wrestling. So now girls are in wrestling. They brought the valets back. They're wearing very little. And then slowly they get incorporated into matches. Now those girls are having matches. Now they're putting on more clothes. Now they're getting more time. And eventually they just become full-blown wrestlers. And that's where we're at right now, which, this doesn't just apply to GCW, but just in wrestling in general. And I think ECW has a lot to do with that. And it's because of the growth that needed to happen from the original debut of whatever it is, whether it's the weapons or the girls or whatever it is, to 20 years later to where we are now.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head because right now in GCW, well, I'm not sure if she's current, if she lost the title, but at one point their ultra violent champion, which is their deathmatch world champion for the most part, was Marina Yamashita. So it's like,
that's awesome.
They have GCW has some legit alley catch, some legit top tier women wrestling in their company, where ECW, it was arm candy. It was Francine, it was Beulah. and it was great for the time. You know, you can't really shit on them for it because look at what WWE was doing around that time too. We were getting puppies and bra and panties matches. So that's kind of where we were at in the 90s. But when I look at ECW to me is like Bob Dylan or the Beatles. You know, you can say you like Phil Collins or Dave Matthews Band or Nirvana or any of those bands. They're good, but they can never be the Beatles or Bob Dylan. They were the ones that set the trend. They created it from nothing. There was nothing there was nothing before their sound. They created that sound. And I think GCW is taking a sound that was created by them and they're just kind of doing their own thing with it, which when you're I'm not saying they're trying to rip off ECW because I do enjoy some of the stuff GCW does, but anytime you're kind of following in the footsteps of someone, I feel like it knocks you down just a little bit. And I know there's FMW in Japan.
I was going to say, but that's everybody. Like ECW didn't invent it; they just stole it from Japan.
Right. There's FMW. I'm speaking strictly on American hardcore wrestling, but yeah, for me, I like GCW. I grew up loving ECW, but GCW is its own thing. It needs better stories from top to bottom of the card, not just this top main event story. They need more stories. They need more rounded out divisions. It seems like a live experience, and ECW was a live experience too, but Paul Heyman was very smart about knowing that he had to tell stories on TV to get people in.
Sure. The backstage promos in ECW, I mean, you could release a video just of those backstage promos and it would sell.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I just think like they're lacking on several things that comes from a TV mind where it just feels like I'm watching a super indie. Every time I watch a GCW show, I feel like I'm just watching their big indie event. I don't feel like I'm truly following a week to week story based wrestling company like ECW felt like.
I agree. I now, granted, I don't follow ECW or GCW a ton, but that's the exact sentiment that I get as well. It's a glorified super indie.
Yep,
that's a great way to put it.
It is. It's like if you look at the book on the outside, maybe you say yes, but when you read the book, it's like totally.
And that's not a bad thing. A glorified super indie. They got their little niche thing. I think that's awesome. I just don't think the way they do things right now. I think they would have to change their complete story structure up if they were to ever go to a weekly produced show.
For sure. Yeah, because if you're going to have a weekly produced show to gain those new fans, you're going to have story. Their rabid fan base will follow them, but if you're going to gain fans, you have to have story.
Yeah.
Good God, could you imagine if GCW ran weekly? Their guys don't produce enough blood to do so.
They're doing like every other weekend almost. Like sometimes it is weekly. Like
how do you do a death match every other weekend? You don't heal.
Yeah.
52 shows a year, so.
The beauty of what they do, though, they don't have anyone outside of Nick Gage locked to an exclusive contract. So they're just cherry picking the independents for shows where if somebody falls out, they'll just pick up someone to fill the spot.
Yeah.
It's not injuries aren't affecting them because they don't have any story, you know?
I tell you, man, Matthew Justice, just some of the people that they bring in, like you can see Matthew Justice at the Buffalo Wild Wings here in West Virginia, and then the next night he's on GCW.
Yeah, Matthew Justice is great. Love the second gear crew in GCW.
Yeah. All right. Anybody have any final thoughts before we move on to the final topic? All right. We will move on to the final topic of the evening. What dictates a heel? Fan reaction or wrestlers' tactics?
I love this question when Chad sent out this question because honestly, like you could have, and the first thing I thought of, and I'm sure you did too, is Cody Rhodes at the end of his AEW run coming out there and trying to play the baby face and trying to get people to cheer him, but he was booed more than anybody else on the show. And everybody's like, you got to turn heel. And I'm like, he is a heel. When you get booed that much, I don't care what you're doing in a ring, you're a heel. Like if people are booing you and hating you, that makes you a heel.
And Cody has said that since that he was a heel during that time.
Has he said it? Oh, I didn't even hear
in a recent interview, I heard him, or it might have been a response to a fan on Twitter, but he said I was a heel.
And
but at the time, he said he wasn't.
I kept preaching it on our shows. I'm like, guys, he's getting booed every week. He is a heel. He's getting.
But that's the thing. That's the interesting part about Cody's response to that, right? Like he says, in retrospect, he was a heel. But going through the curtain, did he think of himself as a heel or does he think of himself as a babyface?
I think Chad said it too. We thought he was doing it on purpose. We thought he was.
Well, yeah, right. I think we thought that, but it's obviously we don't know the answer to it. But I think that's what it comes down to.
Purpose. I think that was part of the character. I want to be cheered. I want to be the biggest babyface in the company, and I'm going to get them to boo that.
That makes him a heel, right? That makes sense. I believe if that makes sense to you and me, that it probably makes sense to Cody as well.
People who were there begging for him to be a heel. I'm like, you guys, he's already a heel. He's playing it perfectly, and you're just not getting it. I love it. Like he got exactly what he wanted out of it.
We talked about shoots turning into works. I think that was one of those situations where Cody wanted to be a babyface. The crowd did not like him. So now hindsight, he's looking back. I'm like, yeah, of course. Did you hear the crowd? They were booing me. It's like, dude,
yeah,
I don't know.
That's not
if
what you
was all
wanted,
in the
right?
plan. Yeah.
Every time he was never turning heel, he got a bigger boo the next time he was on TV. Like I think he was,
but think back to that time though, man. That the end of that Cody run was very confusing. It wasn't like I didn't feel like he was playing the guy who wanted to be the heel, and we were booing him because he wanted. It didn't feel like that. It felt disjointed in the story. It didn't feel like organically made like that. You know what I mean?
Really. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say if he didn't start leaning into it, then it was going to be the wrong kind of heat. It was going to turn into
away heat.
People forget how fucking people were booing him. Not like we want you to turn. There was some like true discontent from the fans at the end of that run.
Dude, this question is so good. I really, even just us talking about it now, I don't know what side I fall on. I think if you compare. You said that the first thing that came to your mind and probably everybody's mind was Cody. It was not for me. But now that you brought up Cody, it is changing my mind on a lot of stuff. The first thing that came to mind for me was Rocky Maivia. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So Rocky comes out, Rocky sucks, all that stuff. And we know it's been documented 1,000 times that Vince just wanted him to be a big babyface. And he was not trying to get these boos, but the boos kept coming. So Rocky Maivia, was he a babyface or was he a heel? I'm talking blue streamers, smiling Rocky Maivia, original Rock.
That's the beauty of the question, is because when do you consider the birth of Rocky Maivia the heel? Because was his heeldom birthed when the Die Rocky Die chant started, or was his heeldom birthed when he did his first dastardly tactic?
Right.
What happens? I'm very obviously who was on my mind when I came up with this question is MJF. He's all in the news. Everyone is thinking about, is he a babyface? They kind of teased it going into Full Gear. Like he played with it a little bit. I feel like they didn't truly know how they were going to go until the end of it. I think they were leaving the door open to go either way, but the fans are cheering him, and then he comes out at the scrum at Full Gear and gives a big middle finger to everybody again. I'm back. I'm the old MJF. So it's like,
but is that what you need to say to be a babyface, right?
Exactly. If you're telling the crowd, fuck you, and you're being a scumbag on TV, are you a heel? Or if you're telling the crowd, fuck you, but the crowd's still cheering you, are you a babyface? Like what dictates, is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy?
Can you imagine? He's like, fuck you guys, because we're filming this tonight. He's making his first appearance. It's Wednesday night. He's making his first appearance on Dynamite tonight. If he comes out and he shits on the crowd, and with every comment he shits on the crowd goes more and more nuts for him and cheering for him. That's a
I can't wait to see how it plays out tonight. I'm looking forward to this so much.
The thing is he going to be able to turn them to make them boo him and be the heel tonight?
I'm not convinced
that
he'll
the
be
goal?
there tonight. I think it might be a taped segment.
Oh yeah, I can see that if it's from the movie set.
If it was just me, like if I had my creative writer hat on for AEW, I would have the camera start on his movie set, and you see him sitting in the little movie chair with MJF emblazoned on the back of the chair. The camera comes up behind him. He turns around to the camera and cuts a fucking promo. Like, shoot him on the set of Iron Claw. Total scumbag Hollywood moment. Like, do that. But I don't know, man. I think
I take it a step further, Chad. I have his music play and show the stage like he's gonna come out, and then
yeah.
Think I was actually gonna come there when I'm filming a movie.
Yeah.
See, that's a heel move. That is a heel.
That's heel.
Right.
But
I don't care what the reaction is. I don't care if they cheer that. That's a heel. I think that's a heel move. So if they cheer that, if that happens, if they play MJF's music and it cuts to a promo saying, "You thought I'd actually be there," and the crowd cheers, I'm not saying that would happen, but let's say it does happen. Is that a heel move or is that a babyface move?
To me, that's a heel. He's a heel.
And
they're cheering.
That's one thing I think he could do to get them to boo him because they want to see him tonight.
The old school wrestling definition, I think if you were truly old school, the old timers of the business would say, if the crowd's booing you, you're a heel. If they're cheering you, you're a babyface. It's cut and dry. I think in today's wrestling world, though, those lines are a little blurred. Like
Totally.
I don't think you can always say that, because I hear Bully Ray always talk about nobody gets true heat anymore. It's like, dude, we're living a little bit in a different world where what do you have to do sometimes to get these people to hate you? Because if everybody
knows you're doing a job.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard to get anybody to you just have to be a despicable human being for them not to like you. Otherwise, they just understand that your job is to get me not to like you. And I can appreciate you doing a job.
Exactly.
Yeah,
MJF is one of my favorite wrestlers, and he's a piece of shit. But I don't cheer him. If I go to the show, I
we understand that makes him money. That makes AEW money. That makes the entire locker room money. So can we really hate him for doing that?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's I don't, like I said, I don't have an answer to this question. I legitimately
it's a chicken or the egg type thing.
I cannot wait to go to a show. I've got a show this weekend. I cannot wait to get in the locker room and ask guys this question: what defines a heel? Is it how you act, or is it the fan reaction?
We need to get you back on here to tell us what kind of.
There you go.
Definitely, I would, and for real, I would like to have you take notes on that, and I'd like to hear what some of them have to say.
I'll see what I can do. Sure.
And I would bet money the guys who have been in the game a little longer would say crowd, and I bet the newer wrestlers would say what the wrestler does.
I'll give you another example is when Becky Lynch turned on Charlotte. She was supposed to go heel. She started beating her with the kendo
stick.
And started beating her with the kendo stick. She's supposed to be heel, and yet we get the birth of the man who is the most over character in the WWE for the last 10 years. Like the popularity she got out of that, then she gets a
difference though. Here's the difference in that, Tom.
Leaned into her being the face.
She leaned into it.
Yeah.
MJF isn't leaning into it.
Yeah.
He played with it, but now he's like full blown. You marks actually believed me. What did he say, Sneed? Something about
exactly like that. And the way he came out at Full Gear, I knew it when he came out with Full Gear and he looked at the crowd and he came back and he came running out I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going back heel. This is he's working the crowd. This is not a face, MJF. Because if he was a face, that's not how he would act as a face.
But, okay, John Cena. Okay, I could do this all night. The John Cena doesn't make sense to me. So John Cena for 8-10 years was pushed as a babyface, right? He's pushed as the babyface in storyline, and his actions are babyface actions. And the payoff every pay-per-view would be him fighting a dastardly heel, right? So you have to think that we've got a heel versus babyface there. But if you just go on reaction, the crowd reaction that he's getting for 7 of those 8 years are strict heel reactions. Roman Reigns too.
Well, that to me, like the Cena thing, plays into the opinion of a wrestler's tactics dictates what you are.
Right,
because
that's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, for 100%.
So he's a babyface, right?
He's a babyface. But then Cody Rhodes like he's trying to be the
I
baby
can't even
face.
count Cody. Cody's in like this meta world of wrestling where it's like we know, you know that we know. It doesn't count. It's there's too many levels of it.
That's a good point, because when AEW first started, I vividly remember one of the early interviews he gave before even the first Double or Nothing, where Cody said that in AEW, we live in a world where it's not so black and white when it comes to heels and baby faces.
Sure.
And I think he's always tried to separate that, but I also feel like Cody is he's very guilty of talking out of both sides of his mouth. He'll say one thing and then lean on the old school of pro wrestling, so you never know really where he's at.
You think a big part of it is that we have so much access to these wrestlers now?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because MJF's the only person that I know. I mean, I'm sure there are more, but he was probably the main one that just keeps kayfabe constantly.
Yes.
And that's it. I mean, it used to be the opposite, where everybody would keep kayfabe.
Everybody would do it.
Right.
Now very few people do it.
That's why it would be such a shame if he was a babyface.
Yeah.
Like if he actually played into it, because he's one of the few heels that lives the gimmick on social media and in life.
Yeah, same thing like Piper. When Piper left WWE after WrestleMania 2, he left as the most hated wrestler there. He came back before WrestleMania 3, I think it was like October, and all of a sudden he was being cheered and he did nothing different. Piper never changed, but the reaction changed.
Did he lean into it after the reaction?
He was just he was the same. If you go back and watch his Piper's Pits and Flower Shops with Adrian Adonis, he was shitting on him like he always shit on everybody.
See, when Piper came to WCW, he was beloved.
Yeah,
which he was coming in off the heels of Hogan turning heel, and everyone's like, "Oh fuck, Roddy and Hogan back together again. Now Hogan's a bad guy. How's this gonna go?"
Let's be honest. After WrestleMania 2, when Piper left, he never really got any heat after that. Everybody loved him after that. Even when they tried to make him bad, when he came back at Mania when Hogan fought McMahon, he got cheered there. Like they can never turn him into a heel. For some reason, he was just so beloved.
I'm gonna blow your mind, Tom.
All right.
I grew up because Mania my earliest memories, like right after Mania 3, like around then. So I grew up, as far as my wrestling memory, I never realized Piper was this legendary heel.
Makes sense.
He was always a babyface to me.
Exactly. That's what I say. After WrestleMania 2, he was never hated again, and they can never do anything to make people hate him. So
when I started like getting older and reading these lists of greatest heels of all time, and Piper was always at the top of the list, I was like, when did this happen?
That's a funny, the age difference. Like, well, only 8 years apart.
Yeah.
I thought we were like 23. Sorry.
Only 8 years apart, but it's just, that's what's amazing about wrestling is how we have different views on it. I grew up with Piper kicking Cyndi Lauper in the head and hitting Jimmy Snuka over the head with a coconut. And like, you're like, what made him a heel?
Yeah, exactly.
And people just love to boo him and hate him back in the early.
He was the badass in They Live for me.
Movie too. Best wrestler movie ever made. Like with a wrestler starring in a movie.
Oh, easily. Yep. Not even a question.
Fast and Furious 6.
There's a debate.
Let's go. You want to start this over? I will die on that hill.
I'll never not like MJF always had my respect after what he did to Hawk in Chicago.
Oh yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Just shut him down.
Just to watch him with only 2 people sitting there, no one else around, and watch him just put Hawk in his place.
He could have easily shook Hawk's hand and been like, "Thanks for being a fan," but he didn't. He stuck it to him.
Guy who went to a toy drive where people were donating toys and charged the fans of money to take pictures with him.
It's
to
great.
stay in character. How beautiful is that? And we don't know.
That's the thing, guys like you like that. So is that a babyface move?
Right.
We don't know if the money went in his pocket or he gave it to the toy drive afterwards, but he charged the people and he stayed in character to make people hate him.
Well, I've always heard Brian talk about how much of a sweetheart he is in real life. So
So just around the horn, I know this is a difficult one, but just right off the top, right off your gut, instant reaction. I'm just going to say wrestler tactics for me. You could debate it either way. Both are valid. I'm saying wrestler tactics makes a heel.
Fan reaction for me.
Wrestler tactic.
It's got to be wrestler tactics, but it's got to be based on what you expect the fans to want. If they want a heel reaction, then that, and you do heel tactics, and that gets the crowd excited, that makes you a babyface. So I'm not going to define what the heel and babyface tactics are, but based on that, I think it's got to be tactics.
So I just Googled just to see. I said, what makes a good heel? And there's a list of things that came up, and it says
I need to know the age of the guy that made the list.
Yeah, I would like to know that too. But it says gets the crowd to hate him or her, not just cheap heat, but genuine hatred.
Dude, genuine hatred is like it's as rare as like liquid gold found in the woods.
In the wrestling
like
business, absolutely.
Yeah.
This isn't the age of kayfabe, man. Legit hatred. I don't know if that exists anymore in pro wrestling today.
That's true.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah, because the example that they gave in here was Freddie Blassie. So yeah. I don't know, man. We could go back and forth on this one.
Great question.
Hours.
Legit hatred, legit heat in pro wrestling is kind of like Santa Claus. It only works for kids up until a certain age, and then the secret's let out of the bag and it's gone forever.
I'd say the closest we've seen it in the last 30 years is MJF.
It's close. I mean,
I can see it. Yeah.
Close. That's what I'm saying. The closest it's been. He's been
30 years counts Hogan turning on WCW.
Sure, he did get legit heat for that.
Day, yes. That with the afterwards, then we get into the whole gray area again.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we'll put a pin in it because I do want to bring you back, Mark, after you do a little research and
let me see what I can do.
Yeah, I would like to have a little piece on that. We'll put a little
poll the fans. Poll the wrestlers, I should say.
Poll the walkthrough.
And when you get something put together, let us know and we'll have you back on.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, Mark, man, it's been great having you back on. Again, we just did it, but we're making plans to have you back on. Let everybody know where they can find you and what you have going on.
Yeah, again, guys, thank you very much for letting me come back on here. I anytime you guys invite me on here, I'm here. I love discussing wrestling. I love yelling at you guys. This is always a blast. If you guys want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Ref Mark Bitters. I don't know when this episode drops, but I've got a couple very, very cool and important wrestling shows coming up. We've got ECW, which is in Oshkosh, Wisconsin on December 2nd. Not only is it their 9th anniversary show where they've got Jimmy Hart and Colt Cabana coming in, they also have a mask versus hair match. They have career versus career, a ton of title matches, and most importantly, it's a toy drive. We're going to try to raise as many toys as we can for Toys for Tots. And then 1 week later on December 8th, we've got the Creative Pro / Major Pod Toy Drive, which is a wrestling show in, I actually don't know the town, but it's somewhere in New York.
Merrick.
It's in Merrick. Okay. So Merrick, New York. It's on December 8th. It's a Thursday. If you can make it out there, please do. Admission for that show is only 2 brand new wrestling toys sealed. Or you could just go to Ringside Collectibles. There's all the information on the website there. If you just want to go ahead and make a very, very cheap donation because they're giving figures away at Ringside Collectibles right now.
Awesome. Well, man, it's again great having you on. We can't wait to have you back. And that's going to wrap us up for this edition of the Turnbuckle Debate. Make sure you guys are following us at theturnbuckletavern.com. You'll find everything Tavern related under that one website. Tom, I'm going to give you a couple seconds. Get your shit in.
The OG Fit Kid, Twitter and Instagram. Fig Night on Tuesdays and Sessions on Wednesdays.
All right. It's been a good one. Court is dismissed.